Hi friends, thank you for downloading today's podcast. Be sure to check us out on the web at www.thesceneshow.com, where you can find our blog and find the new exclusives and new offers to you, the listeners. Don't forget to check us out, and be sure to, if able to, consider donating to The Scene Show. And in order to help us out, in order to offer incentives to guests and buy new equipment and things of that nature, 100% of your proceeds will go back into the show. And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy today's broadcast. And welcome everyone to The Scene Show. Great to be with you here once again on a Monday, the final Monday in the month of March. Hard to believe we'll be headed towards April here, which means we're headed towards the second half of Lent, and so what a great time to be in the church indeed. And I'm not sure if we'll do anything special for Easter or not, much like I did for Christmas. If you recall, we did the Lessons and Carols service at Christmas time, and so maybe I'll do something for Easter. We'll see. We will see. But today what we're talking about is we're picking up our conversation from St. Thomas last week. Last week I gave an introduction to St. Thomas, the dumb ox as he was called. And he was not a dumb ox by any means. He was quite brilliant, and in fact, he was so brilliant that it escaped me to in being able to recall and recount the 5 proofs to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read from Olson's text here, because Olson breaks them down, and that's where we're going to start. And then we're going to talk mostly about his view of salvation. So here it is this is from Olson's text here. Aquinas presented 5 ways of rationally demonstrating the existence of God, and all 5 of them may be found in some form in Aristotle's philosophy. And so you see here that's really the important thing, is that all 5 of the proofs come from Aristotle. I'm going to skip down just a little bit. The first way Aquinas attempted to demonstrate God's existence was the phenomenon of natural motion. So everything moved must have a mover, and there cannot be an infinite chain of regress in motion. Therefore, it is necessary to arrive at a first mover, moved by no other, and this everyone understands to be God. So there's his first one. His second way attempts to prove God's existence by appealing to causation, or causes. And there must be the first efficient cause, which everyone gives the name God. And the third way, which we're going to get to in a moment, because it's the most forceful of Aquinas' 5 ways. So we're going to consider that one last. The fourth way focuses on gradations found in things. So degrees of perfection, similar to what Augustine, or to what Anselm produced in his Monologion. And then the fifth way appeals to teleology, appeals to the purposes in the natural order. Some intelligent being exists by whom all natural things are directed to their end, and this being we call God, and that's That's an argument from the design or the teleological argument that we would know later on. So here's Aquinas' third way that we find more forceful, and it's so forceful that Olson quotes from Aquinas in full here. So here it is. We find in nature things that are possible to be and not to be, since they are found to be generated and to be corrupted, and consequently it is possible for them to be and not to be. But it is impossible for these always to exist, for that which cannot be at some point, at some time, is not. Therefore, if everything cannot be, then at one time there was nothing in existence. Now, if this were true, even now there would be nothing in existence, because that which does not exist begins to exist, not only through something already only through something already existing. I'm misquoting this. Therefore, if at one time nothing was in existence, it would have been impossible for anything to have begun to exist, and thus even now nothing would be in existence, which is absurd. Therefore, not all beings are merely possible, but there must exist something, the existence of which is necessary. But every necessary thing either has its necessity caused by another or not. Now it is impossible to go on to infinity in necessary things which have their necessity caused by another, as has already been proved in regard to efficient causes. Therefore we cannot but admit the existence of some being having of itself its own necessity, and not receiving it from another, but rather causing in others their necessity. This all men speak of as God. And so so it's based on necessity there. And I just wanted to clarify that one point from last week's episode, because I don't think I explained the proofs the right way. I think there were some gaps in my knowledge there. But so that's the rundown of the 5 proofs. And Aquinas believed in creation ex nihilo by faith, not on reason, as other scholastics tried to argue. So remember from last week, he goes through and he makes this distinction between faith and reason almost that others don't make. Remember, Augustine had a faith-seeking understanding approach to reason. Aquinas believes that reason alone can get us to God. But he does not, but looking at his view of salvation, he does not believe that salvation is by works. Absolutely not. He holds that grace perfects our nature. In other words, our nature is not broken by the fall of man. We lose perfection and human nature is damaged, but it is not shattered. The image of God remains intact, and that's sort of a difference and I believe the church holds to this today. This idea that grace perfects our nature, that our nature is not shattered by the fall of man. Human nature is damaged, and you see that's a subtle distinction between Catholic thought and Protestant thought that we'll see when we get into the Reformation in a couple of weeks, and that's only 2 weeks away. Is our discussion on the Reformation. It's only 2 weeks away. And so, but going back to Aquinas, he follows Augustine on predestination and grace. So he follows in that same line of thinking, and he adds to it, and saying that things act according to their nature. So he establishes primary and secondary causes. God is the primary cause or the first cause, and moves in everything by their nature or in accordance with their nature. So he's really big on, things moving according to their nature. And one of the criticisms that I was reading about is that that Aquinas' God is pure act, as he puts him, which gets metaphysical, but it's impersonal, that God is very distant, and some make that claim, and I've heard others make the claim that Aquinas paves the way for later deist thinkers, saying that God just created the world and then turned his back. But defenders of Aquinas, or Thomistic scholars, point to the later portions of the Summa, which detail God's love and goodness as being essential parts of who God is. But I do think, again, we have to go back. We've seen throughout this series that faith and reason play an integral role together. They go together. And that's what we're going to see until the Reformation, and we'll explain that, we'll unpack that, and how the Reformation changes that. Now, on the issue of predestination, not all Roman Catholic thinkers agree to that. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that it's not the official position of the Church. And I will make a note to find that what the official position of the Church is on predestination and the doctrine of salvation. What is the official position of the Catholic Church on salvation, on matters of salvation, and the free will predestination debate? I will get that for you. We'll consult the Catechism, and I'll put it in next week's notes, so that you can have that. So the reason why the later thinkers reject predestination is because of the Reformation. It has nothing to do with Augustine or Aquinas. It's because of the Reformation and John Calvin why they which is interesting, because without the Reformation, I assume it would mean that we would be, as Catholics, we would believe in predestination. And so this is an area of Aquinas' thought that the Church does not accept, but we will unpack it again. Now, Aquinas refuses to separate sanctification and justification, which is very common in the Catholic way of thinking about salvation, is that we don't separate salvation, we don't separate justification and sanctification. And we'll see those terms come to the fore when we get to the Reformation, because you have justification, meaning how are we justified before God, and then we have sanctification, of what is that process of perfection, what does that process of Christian perfection look like. And we will see in next week's show that there's this pushback within the Catholic Church by folks like William of Ockham, of Occam's razor fame, who push back against the scholastic method or the scholastic understanding, that understanding of logic and reason and rationality that that come to be hallmarks of the scholastic period, they will push back against that, and they will lay the groundwork for the Reformation. And so I hope that what we have here is a brief sketch of Aquinas, and particularly the notes on salvation. And I just want to make sure that I've hit the major points on Aquinas' view of salvation. So let me turn here and just double check myself here, because it's probably the most important. So he focuses, and particularly what I want to highlight is he focuses on causes. That not everything that happens is directly caused by God, and yet everything in reality is within God's overall plan, purpose, knowledge, and control. So that really the way I understand this is that God has given us the capacity for free choice. And that our own will is somehow within the will of God, within God's will, by virtue of Him giving us the capacity to choose and to reason. And I hope I've explained that right correctly. And so Aquinas is one of the, as we talked about last week, he's probably one of, if not the biggest Catholic theologian, certainly of the Middle Ages, I would say. But he's right up there on the Mount Rushmore of Catholicism, and really of Christianity. And that won't work out. I was just trying to find a poem about Aquinas being one of the giants of our faith, but that I will have to find for another time. Now so we've gone through, we've hit the apex of the medieval period, and we're going to next week cover the sort of the decline and fall of the medieval period and the Reformation that follows. And we're going to try and do it some justice here. I don't want it to be a one-sided affair. We're going to try and be fair to all sides, although that's, of course, always difficult to do. But I hope that whether you're Catholic or Protestant listening, that it will be a time when we can reflect on our shared history, on our points of division, and on the work of ecumenism that is being done today, so that that hopefully we will see the good coming out of the bad. And so I'm ending a little early today, a little shorter, a little bit shorter than usual, but I think we've done St. Thomas justice in what we've covered and how we've described everything here today. And you can see why I didn't want to do this in one part, because I felt like doing it all in one part would have just sort of crammed it in, kind of like I think the episode on Augustine ended up being, kind of cramming in and skipping over things, and you skip over certain things and you probably skip over the wrong things. So in order to keep on pace with the quality of the content rather than the quantity, I divided it into two parts. So thank you for listening to the second part on Thomas Aquinas, and join us next week when we talk about the fall of scholasticism. God bless.